What's up guys, T here. So I decided to make the air and ship doctrine videos. They're going to have the same focuses here as the land doctrine one, and it's going to be on the focuses of each doctrine, what it takes to use them, and then what I'd recommend using them with and for, and then kind of the differences between them. So first off, let's start with strategic destruction, just because it's on the left here, and you're going to have a high focus on strategic bombing. It's good at air superiority, and it's good at ground support, so it's pretty good all around. It's probably the best all around doctrine, but again, that focus is going to be on strategic bombing. Its disadvantage is that it's not as good as battlefield support at ground support, so it does lose a slight edge there. So the huge focus here is going to be a well-rounded air force focused on air superiority and then strategic bombing, so focusing on your enemy's infrastructure and factory production and taking those out behind the enemy's lines through strategic bombing. It can do ground support, but like I said, battlefield support's the one you want for ground support specifically. You're going to be focusing mainly on strategic bombing and air superiority. So the planes you're going to want to build for this doctrine by priority are fighters first, strategic bombers second, and then close air support third, and then your naval bombers. It's always a good idea to keep those in mind. That's going to be dependent on which country you're playing, how close you are to the sea, how hazardous the enemy navy is to you, because naval bombers are the best option for taking out enemy ships from land. The most notable buffs for this doctrine are going to be you're going to be able to get an additional 50% strategic bombing, or you're going to have the option to get a 50% decrease to the penalty for nighttime bombing. Since it's difficult to build a large army and large air force for a lot of the smaller countries, my recommendations are going to be pretty limited to the larger countries. So for strategic destruction, the country I would recommend is definitely the UK. Because they kind of just get to sit there with their airfields, build up air superiority, and then you can bomb the crap out of Germany and actually launch like a true strategic bombing campaign on them. It's one of the few countries that actually has the ability to just basically focus on a strategic bombing campaign, hence the Battle of Britain and all the other things like that. So you can play it really historical in that sense, and this doctrine is going to be really quite sensible for choosing that option. Now moving on to the next doctrine, that's going to be battlefield support for you. And as I kind of already hinted at, this is going to be your ground support, air superiority. It's going to be focused on supporting your ground troops through and through. So the plane priority for this is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be fighters, then close air, and then strategic bombers or tactical bombers. You can kind of go either way on that one, or you can just completely erase the strategic bombers entirely. They're really not that necessary. It's just if you want them there for strategic bombing's sake. And the notable buff for this is you're going to be able to get an additional 40% air support efficiency, an additional 20% air support, and then an additional 20% ground support. Now, there is a little bit of a difference between these three factors. They're all important. The support efficiency is just when you run the mission, it's going to increase the efficiency percentage of the actual mission. Then your air support is going to actually affect the air support percentage. And then the air support is going to affect the ability to say you have air superiority over a ground battle, and then the ground support is going to affect the actual amount of damage your planes do to the ground units. So some countries I'd recommend for this is anyone who has a decent sized air force and is going to be focusing on supporting the troops. So two countries that are good for this are the USSR or Japan, and possibly Germany. But the reason I don't put Germany here is because I think a good option to look at for them is this next one, and that's operational integrity. And this is going to be focusing on defending your own airspace and kind of use for small air forces while you focus on growing your air force. It does not only focus on defending, but as you get into later doctrines, it starts to get you like okay offensive buffs for your fighters and close air and different things like that. So your priority for your planes is going to be pretty much mostly all fighters, and then as you start to get more production, you're going to move into close air and strategic or tactical bombers. And the difference between strategic bombers and tactical bombers, even though they share the same name, is going to come down to the difference between close air and strategic bombers. So close air are really good at ground support, while strategic bombers are really good at strategic bombing. Tactical bombers are okay at both. They're like a hybrid between the two. They can do both, but they're not as good at one or the other at their specific role. Now, so the countries I'd recommend this doctrine for are going to be your smaller countries for defending your own airspace rather than actually going on offense. But like I said, it does grow into an offensive doctrine as you basically grow with production, so it's kind of nice that they slip that in there. And some countries I said I'd recommend this for is Germany and Italy, because the Allies usually do have a pretty strong air force aka the UK, and to be able to defend against those strategic bombing campaigns, as I was kind of just talking about, that's going to be able to help you quite considerably with this doctrine. Alright guys, that does it for my air doctrine video. If you enjoyed this or if it helped you, please leave a like. That means a lot to me. As far as the land doctrine and the ship doctrine video, I will link those at the tail end of this video here. And as always guys, thanks for watching.